Democrats will, of course, have to be directly involved to the extent that there is any legislative aspect of this, and we will, by necessity, be engaged because it's clear that the incoming House Republican majority will not be able to do much without us.
House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries earlier today reacting to Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy's big day, Doge Day yesterday. The Department of Government Efficiency and its stated mission to cut government spending. Of course, they were meeting with the Republican conference. This is a day after both men spent some time here in Washington. And joining us now at the table is Democratic Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan of the great state of Virginia. Congresswoman, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us here on a Friday evening. It's 2 weeks out, right? Funding deadline, yes. December 20. Here we are. Still no deal, even on top lines. Are you convinced Republican leadership will present a plan?
I am very hopeful that they will present a plan, and I think they understand how devastating a government shutdown going into the holidays will be. And they tend to go right up to the cliff and then realize they need to work with Democrats, and cooler heads prevail and we get it done. So that seems to be how the 118 started and how we're going to finish.
Well, another kick the can here, I guess. The question is how long into the future, how far into the future we kick. Will there be a super short-term CR get us into the new year and then another that extends to March? That seems to be the talk right now. Does that sound like reality?
Sounds like what's going to happen. I mean, we'll see when we get the language, but from everything that I hear, that's what's going to happen. So
that would be the week of December 16, according to reports, that you might see a vote. Next week, reportedly, an NDAA hits the floor.
Yes.
Will the House of Representatives get its job done and actually complete the work on that bill this year? Or does that get a continuation of some sort or a delay?
I'm very hopeful. We need to finish it right now. I mean, the Pentagon and our armed forces have waited long enough. They need to begin planning.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in the world, and so we need to make sure that we are giving our forces and our service members the resources and the authority that they need.
Well, it's interesting, and our viewers and listeners should know that your district in Virginia is teeming with active duty military members and veterans. This is your view here. And of course, from your committee perspective, I wonder your thoughts on this, because defense hawks see continuing resolutions essentially as a pay cut for the Pentagon. How long can you keep kicking the can without doing damage to preparedness?
I think every single hearing that we had leading up to the NDAA last year and this year, the leadership made clear that we cannot continue going this CR route. Yeah. That it's difficult for them to do long-term planning. It's very difficult to plan out ship builds. We've got the Newport News shipyard right next to my district, and it is very difficult for them to buy the equipment that they need to build ships while waiting to see what authority they're going to get. And then by the time we get around to giving them that authority, the prices go up.
Yes.
So we need to get our act together and do our job on time.
You just said something so important. By the time we approve this, the prices have gone up.
Yes.
So the idea of adding tariffs to the mix at this moment, when Fed Chair Jay Powell is suddenly getting inflation under control, there's a worry that it may spike again due to a combination of tariffs and tax cuts.
Yes.
What does that mean for the military? What are you procuring that costs more?
I would actually say tariffs, tax cuts, and retaliatory tariffs.
Okay.
Part of what we are procuring, though, a lot of our defense contractors get component parts from China or from other countries. And we're trying to fix some of that, like through the Chips and Sciences Act, and make sure that semiconductors are done here. But in the meantime, there are component parts from everything from ships to the essential medications that we need for doctors in the military that we get from other countries. And there is a concern that tariffs will increase prices on those, but at the same time would lead to retaliatory tariffs that would damage our economy even more, and particularly in the state and local government areas, in the areas where our bases are. And it is a very close partnership, whether it's on housing or childcare, between the base and the local community that could be impacted.
It's really interesting because people aren't getting rich in the military.
No.
And they're paying the same price as everyone is for everything else as well. When you add food, the cost of living. What conversations are you having on the Armed Services Committee about this?
We have for the last 2 years been very focused on the quality of life for our service members and their family, and addressing everything from housing, to access to child care, to access to health care. And we owe our service members and their families these basic things, in addition to making sure that they have what they need to be ready for whatever they have to get deployed into or for whatever challenges come their way.
Well, there's talk of the first $1 trillion defense budget. The Senate is apparently $25 billion away from the House on this. When will the two chambers get together on a number that members can pursue?
I would hope within the next week. Again, I'm not sure what the holdup is. I think both sides need to have a little bit of realism and recognize that in divided government, you've got to make compromises, and we need to fund the absolute necessities and do everything we can to make sure that we are addressing readiness. That not just today, but 5-10 years down the road with these ship builds, and we are addressing the quality of life needs for our service members.
You've said this twice now. You referred to quality of life of service members, and this has been a bit of a conversation around Pete Hegseth's nomination.
Yes.
About allegations regarding sexual harassment.
Yes.
Sexual assault in the military has been a major issue here. Allegations of abusing alcohol. He's denied them all, but some members of the Senate, like Joni Ernst, are concerned about this. Are you? I'm
very concerned. We have done good work in addressing a culture in which many women were sexually harassed or sexually assaulted, but we still have a long way to go. And putting a Secretary of Defense in place with these very serious allegations could undermine all of that work. When you add on top of that he has said he questions the role of women in combat, that will make it very difficult for us to continue to recruit and maintain the best and the brightest service members, including service women. And there are some areas of combat where women are better in those roles. There's some very sensitive situations where you're going into a different culture, a different country, and you need to go door to door and talk to the people in the area. And sometimes women service members talking to women service members are better, but they've proven that on a lot of the combat jobs, they're just as good as men. And to have a Secretary of Defense that questions whether they should be in combat roles is really counterproductive. We'll see if he gets to a confirmation hearing. Just quickly, we're out of time. You're also on the Space Committee. Yes. Bill Nelson, yesterday, NASA administrator, delayed the Artemis project again. Will it end up being canceled? I hope not. Space exploration is very important, but we've got to do it safely. And the Apollo 1 fire and tragedy proved that if you don't take the time to address safety while you are trying to meet your goals, it'll have devastating effects, and we don't want that to happen with Artemis. Glad you could visit with us in person. It's good to see you, Congresswoman. Jennifer McClellan of Virginia, we thank you so much for the insights here on Balance of Power. And coming up, hiring picking up in November, but the unemployment rate increased as well. We'll dig through the numbers coming up with Michael McKee on Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio.